Yeah, we've got a transmission coming in.
10-4.
Yeah, Brian, it's looking more and more like the Arizona Coyotes of the National Hockey League will be relocating to Utah next season.
Players and management has been told they are on their way. They will play next season in Salt Lake City.
The state is a sports state, which leads me to this.
Yes, it is. Welcome in live to the Delta Center. It is time to meet Utah's NHL franchise.
I'll answer a form for the umpteenth time.
What?
That's right. Welcome back to the Puck Drop Podcast. I'm Cole, the NHL Music Man Chapman, and I'm here with Lieutenant Dangle D, Destin Edgington, and we are brought to you by Hockey Stops. Don't forget that. And we're doing a special little shout out to, not really a sponsor, but we're shouting them out. V2 Presents. Jeremy, Brandon, love you guys. This episode wouldn't have happened without you. And that leads me to our biggest guest we've ever had.
I'm going to go ahead and say shout out Adam for getting us lined up with that as well.
Shout out to the Kayzo team.
Everybody with Kayzo. Hey,
but we've got Hayden. How do you pronounce your last name?
Capuzzo. It's Capuzzo. Yeah, there you go.
Capuzzo.
It doesn't happen often that it gets pronounced correctly.
Hayden Capuzzo.
Well, he didn't know my last name for like 12 years.
That is true.
That's
so
okay.
Hayden is a famous DJ. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. He's a famous DJ.
Watch your mouth.
I'm honored.
Fucking famous DJ.
He's played in front of millions of people. And his hockey upbringing made him into who he is today. So let's just kind of start with that.
Where were you born? Where were you born?
Well, first off, happy to be here. Stoked to be here. I have a lot of history in the city, so we'll get to that. But I'm originally from Houston, Texas, born and raised there. I got into, if we're going to go on let's start with hockey, obviously, because it segues into music.
I'm going to call a timeout. I'm sorry. We got to get bucked up.
Oh, yeah, true. We do need to get bucked up.
Bucked up on the puck drop.
It's a quick timeout. 30-second timeout.
30-second timeout.
That was a good timeout.
No.
It's a good segue. Yeah, here. We got to start off strong, so let's get bucked up.
Yeah, bucked up on the puck drop. So here we are.
Oh, yeah.
With Kayzo.
Right. Now Houston, Texas.
Now I'm way ready. I'm ready.
We're freaking...
Yeah, so I'm from Houston originally. My parents are not from Houston. My dad's from New York. My mom's from Michigan. And so my mom's side of the family, big hockey family growing up. My grandfather, my cousin was also a goalie, played college hockey, junior A, triple A. I played against him a bunch growing up, actually, which is pretty cool. Out of Chicago. But I grew up in Houston. I was on skates before I could walk. My mom, so I've been skating ever since I've been playing hockey since I was 3 years old.
Touche.
And so I grew up, I would say I played the position of forward for probably less than a blink of an eye. And I got into being a goalie right from the start, mostly because I thought the gear looked really cool. I feel like that's how most kids get into becoming goalies. If you ask, it's especially in our time, it's the gear looked cool.
You're absolutely correct. And with that being said, though, I'm gonna go ahead and shout out goalies again, because for some reason they're the most goofy. You're
goofy, dude, and we love it.
But but they're actually weird. But they're the smartest player on the ice.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. I'll take that. Say more of these things about me.
No, without a doubt.
Keep talking about how smart I am. I love this.
Without a doubt.
It's a very isolating position where you have to be aware of a lot of things and a lot of people all at once, and there's a lot.
Angles.
Everything. We could go down a wormhole of just that. But so. When I was young, I thought the gear looked cool. So I immediately transitioned into being a goalie pretty quickly, and I loved it. And so played youth hockey in Houston growing up. And then when I got to about, I would say 12 years old, I played other sports growing up. I was trying to be well-rounded. I played soccer, basketball, baseball. Yeah. All when I was younger.
You got all that coordination that comes with everything.
But hockey always stood out as my first passion, my love. And when I got a little older, around 12, 13, I was like, all right, cool. That was fun. But hockey, I want to be an NHL player. I want to play pro hockey. So I'm going to just play hockey, and this is all I'm going to care about. And I'm going to put my whole entire life into this. And so started playing like a higher level of hockey. In Houston at the time, I wouldn't really call it like a hotbed of hockey back then, but I would say at that time, Texas as a whole started to really bubble with hockey talent.
It definitely had a development even early on. We're the same age, so
right?
It's one of those things where it started to really actually expand a lot quicker than
that time period. Mid 2000s, I would say early 2000s to mid 2000s.
What teams were you playing for? I know they had like the Ice Jets.
Yeah, so when I was in Houston, I played for a team called the Houston Wild back then, and that was our AA into AAA. Like we were basically, my age group was like the first attempt at AAA hockey in Houston, Texas.
Oh wow!
Yeah, at the time there was only AA.
Yeah.
And then we were the first class.
To kind of
between 90 to 92, a kind of a combination of kids played together, and we were the first ones to like go try AAA hockey in Houston. And then obviously we'd play a lot of teams from Dallas. Like you said, the Ice Jets, there's the Alliance Bulldogs back in the day. There was the Dallas Junior Penguins. And now it's all, from my understanding, it's all kind of conglomerated into more like centrally located, like a few teams, like the Dallas Junior Stars.
I was just going to say with the NHL.
Yeah. And so everything. I ended up from like Pee-wee, but like mostly like Bantam onward, played like AAA hockey.
Awesome.
And I played at the time in Houston at like 14 years old. It was my last year living in Houston, but I would play. I mean, I played against kids, Seth Jones, Blake Coleman, all these guys they all played in Dallas at the time.
Oh, right.
And those are the kids I was playing against growing up.
I'm sure you're still a beast
for Texas hockey. It's been
it's like riding a bike. It'll take a minute.
I mean, I've been on skates since I stopped playing, but in terms of putting the pads on, I mean, I still have all my gear. I have I have a storage unit out in LA, and I can't give it away.
Well,
it's something
let me know.
sentimental.
Let me know.
I definitely need to update some of it. I would say definitely new skates, new pads, but I still have it all in the.
I'm going to call you out.
Storage unit.
Let me know when you're ready to get.
I'm getting antsy to do it.
Dangled.
I was saying it earlier. I've definitely I've got some friends that now live in LA that I used to play hockey with that played a really high level, and they are playing men's league out there, and I know the men's league talent in LA is really strong.
Oh, I'm sure.
And I've kind of had itches to get back into it.
Do it, dude.
I think I went through I know we're jumping around here, but I went through a long period of time where I fell out of love with the game. I mean, we're going definitely back to the beginning, but I got really burnt out from it for a long time, and I still love the game, but that side of me just kind of diminished completely.
And you're absolutely not wrong with that, because I even went through the same phase of everything too, because growing up with the way that we traveled and the way that we did play, you're all in or you kind of get a little burnt out. And I mean, it's still a passion. Don't get me wrong. But at the end of the day, I took 6, maybe 8 years off and then came flying back into it full force.
I think that's kind of typical with anything that you get involved in.
Well, and life gets busy.
Yeah. Right? I mean, life did get very busy.
You get older and then it's you got to figure something 100%. Out with that. So,
but I mean, it's still such anytime hockey's on TV, I have it on in my studio.
Love it.
I've been fortunate enough to play and train with players that are now still also in the NHL, so able to keep up with their stories and keep up with their careers. So it's really awesome. But so
what led you to Utah with your upbringing in Texas and everything? And
I know that 14 is about the age where you have to
exactly. So it was start of high school, and it was okay, well, a lot with me along with a handful of other players from Houston that had the potential and the desire to take it to another level. It was okay, where do we want to go? We can't stay here. We just can't. So we all went and tried out for other teams, and there was other teams that I tried out for. I had friends that went and moved to Dallas. They played, Dallas Junior Stars, Alliance Bulldogs, all that AAA hockey in Texas, which was probably the most elite hockey in Texas at the time. I ended up wanting to go play outside of Texas. Almost played for a team called CompuWare out in Michigan, which they were in a league with teams called Little Caesars, Bell Tire, that whole
Cheesers.
That whole elite level of AAA hockey.
That's good league.
Almost went out there and did that, and then the way I came out to Utah was it wasn't by choice initially. It was the coach at the time, Ricard. We kind of talked about him earlier.
Vaguely,
shout out to Ricard.
We're actually going to bring him from Finland over here. So
really, very cool. So I don't remember where he saw me play, but it was definitely at some sort of like development camp. Well, actually, you know what it probably was. Now that it's been years since I talked about this, so it's literally in real time coming back to me. But do you remember the state, district, and national camp stuff?
So,
and so
out of Canada, I got scouted. It was a global,
right?
So
being from Texas at the time, the best players out of Texas would go to district camp, and my district camp was in Utah, actually.
Oh, okay.
So we would come do districts in Utah at the Oval.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming, I think that's where he probably saw me play.
That would make sense though.
Right. So, because I had never played in Utah at that point, never played against a team in Utah, but all of the best players from Texas and other states had to go to districts.
Yep.
And then if they made it out of districts, go to national camp. And so we did districts out of Utah. And so I'm assuming that's kind of probably where.
Well, and that makes sense because I know Ricard was
flagged
established here.
Right.
And so that makes perfect sense.
And so, And so I was trying to figure out where I wanted to play. He had contacted me. At this time, I was a U16 player. And it was a brand new to me and brand new name at the time. It was a team called Chatters that I was being scouted to play for. And it was like a burger restaurant. It was kind of like what we have as In-N-Out.
Almost like a Burley Burger now.
Yeah. Is that still a thing out here, by the way?
Yeah.
Is Chatters still a thing? No,
Chatters is not.
No, it's not. Okay. But it was like, I remember it was being like, it was like an In-N-Out.
Exactly.
Kind of style burger
That's
place.
exactly what it was. Like a smash burger.
They're like, well, this is what the team is called. We're sponsored by them. But it used to be Northwest Regulators and then so and so on. And I'm like, okay, cool. And so I came out and skated. I was already like on the team, at least they wanted me on the team, but I came out and did the tryouts and all that stuff and came out and I was impressed with the level of talent. I didn't really understand what I was getting myself into at the time though. I didn't know. I thought I was playing with a bunch of kids from Utah at the time.
Oh no, they were scouting all over.
And then I realized it was much different when I first got out here. A lot of kids scouted from Finland, Norway, Sweden, just European kids, and then a lot of kids from other parts of the country. And then there were some really talented kids from Utah on the team, but it was like majority kids that came in from other countries and states that lived with billet families. And then there was some kids from
the
Utah.
elite AAA like they do with juniors now.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of what it was. It was now looking back on it, it was. You
were pretty much a junior team.
Yeah, it was treated that way specifically. Yeah, you lived with billet families and you trained and then you lived away from home for 9 months out of the year, whatever it was. And so, I agreed to play. I committed to this team, and I moved out here. And I was only my sophomore year of high school, and I remember driving out here with my dad, and I had no idea what I was getting myself into. Just A, living in Utah, but B, living away from home is my first experience, and it was incredible, honestly.
So did you get you were into a billet family then?
Yeah, right out. Yeah. I lived with the billet family.
Do you remember who they are?
They were a family. They were actually the family I lived with my first year out here was a family from Canada.
Oh, okay.
So they had just moved. They had just moved to Utah, and they had a kid on the team, but he was from Canada.
Okay.
So they weren't like born and raised from Utah.
Right.
At the time,
you got nothing but shinny hockey and.
Yeah. It was awesome. We lived up by Snowbird. I went to a school called Brighton High School.
Yeah, Brighton. Cool. Yep.
Yeah, it was
good area.
Beautiful. And I went to school and didn't know anybody, but it was I went to 4 different high schools because of hockey, and so I was always kind of like the new kid. But I kind of embraced it and I kind of loved it because it was interesting. I'm a very outgoing person.
I was just going to say you're very sociable.
Yeah.
So that kind of
I think I became very sociable because of that. I didn't know that I was sociable at that time. I was still very like young and I didn't know who I was probably quite yet.
A quiet goalie.
But that gave me a lot of confidence to be more outgoing and try new things just because I always had to put myself into pretty vulnerable positions, not knowing anybody and making new friends and meeting new teammates. Like it was like up until that point, I had just played with relatively the same group of kids my entire life. And then we all spread apart.
But that helps down the road, you know?
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where it's like
100%.
That helps with anything. You know? Like get yourself out of your comfort zone, even, if you're watching this and stuff.
Yeah, 100%.
So I read an article and I know that you've been just itching to talk about hockey based on the articles that I've read. I think you had one with Forbes.
I don't get much talk about hockey much
I
because
know,
of music.
I know.
Well, that's why we're here.
That's why we're here.
That's
We're
so
giving you
excited
that
to be here.
opportunity.
Hey, this won't be the last time.
Right.
No, I hope not, because I
Every time you come to Utah, you're coming on the podcast.
I'm ready.
After I go Lieutenant Dangle his ass when he suits up,
we'll see.
we'll have another one.
We'll see.
So I did read that with your teammates in the locker rooms, they were all European based.
Yeah,
and
a lot of them were.
they introduced you into EDM.
Yeah, literally.
Techno, if you will. Uneducated
back in the
people
day.
that don't know what the hell.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a good pump up.
So
jam to
let's.
get
I want to hear about that. I want to hear because that
Right.
was that the starting place of
Yeah,
like
how did that
pretty
translate?
much. So I being from Houston, I grew up on. I have obviously, I'm sure you guys know, I have a huge love for rock music, metal, alternative,
Absolutely.
pop punk, everything. That's pretty much what I grew up on.
Quick
I grew up,
question: Escape the Fate or Falling in Reverse? I told you I was going to put you on the spot. It's the same dude, Ronnie.
yeah, I mean,
have you done anything with Fallen?
wonderfully talented band. I don't really follow them as much as I follow other bands.
Right.
That way, yeah. I grew up more on like Sum 41, Under Oath.
Oh yeah,
Sum 41 was like
Yeah.
actually All Killer No Filler was the first album
Epic.
that I ever bought with like my own money. I was like I was like 13 years old or 12 or whatever.
Well, and I love how you incorporate it.
Yeah, and I've been really lucky.
And
to,
you've worked with a lot of them.
Yeah. It's been extremely full circle with some of the bands I've worked with, especially more on like the pop punk. I just released a song a couple days ago with Story of the Year.
Dude.
That was one of the bands I remember. Getting on the bus in middle school with my
Yeah, I was
iPod.
gonna say that's a way back too, dude.
Yeah.
That's so and dude, epic song.
Thank you.
Epic
See,
track. We listened.
So that's like I grew up on a lot of that, but then I also grew up on a lot of like southern hip hop, trap hip hop.
Oh, okay.
Like I didn't grow up like like I'm from LA. I live in LA now the last 13 years, and there's the West Coast hip hop scene I was pretty much oblivious to. Growing up, I grew up with like Houston rap and like Slim Thug, Chameleonaire, Paul Wall, Mike Jones,
Bone Thugs.
that was like my core of hip
That
hop
makes sense,
back
too,
then.
yeah.
And then so I was either listening to rock music and metal or pop punk or like hip hop as a kid.
Yeah.
And then
No Euro dancer or anything like that.
no, I didn't know. I didn't have any influence. None of my friends listened to it. I didn't know what it was when I was growing up. And so when I first came to Utah, and then I linked up with all these kids from Europe. And
Do you want to shout any of them out right now?
I can't remember any of their names.
Vladimir Stanza, Cuba.
Insert generic name here. But
Actually, I grew up with some of those,
but the thing was, we back then, I know we're going to age ourselves quite a bit here. There was no Bluetooth.
Right.
It was like the aux cord.
LimeWire.
It was
LimeWire.
yeah. But we would have a system in our locker room, and whether it was my sophomore year or my junior year, because my junior year I came back and played for Chatters, but I played for the U18 AAA team, which had even more kids from Europe.
Right.
And I was actually coached by Ricard that year.
So, did you go to college for like computer stuff, or like how did you know?
No, I didn't even go to college. Well, we'll get into that. I went to very minimal college, and so like from my sophomore, my 2 years of hockey out here is where I really, sophomore year specifically, we'd pass the aux cord around. Most of the kids from the US would pick hip hop, rap, metal, rock, and then the kids from Europe would get the aux cord, and it was all like Euro dance. It was like just dance music, techno. And I was like, "What is this? This is really cool. This is like really
kind of
Well,
euphoric?
the European style of dance music back in that day, because I grew up, I was probably listening to it at the same time.
Probably
you
Bass
were.
Hunter.
There was a lot of Bass Hunter, a lot of that floor stuff.
Very little lyrics. Like I remember me and my friends, like anytime there was a song with lyrics in it, we changed it. We're like, we don't want that. We want just straight,
Well, I remember like dubstep coming about, and it was like, what is this?
That was 08, 07, 08 era.
Yeah. So I didn't even, back then I wasn't even aware what dubstep was until post this really.
Well, it started with break beats.
Yeah. So for me, it was like, the way I'd get pumped up for games, I was a goalie. So I was a little bit more I would isolate myself, put headphones on, warm up by myself. And I was a very big, the way the music really was a big factor in my hockey career. I use it as fuel for whether I was training, working out,
and it's
or
like
getting ready for games. I was a
pump up.
big music guy. Like I was a big headphone guy getting ready for games, whether it was on the way to the games.
See, we've had
warm-ups
that-
for games. So
kind of check out. And
So for
just-
me, it was like checking out in my own
And
zone,
routine.
and I used music
And routine.
and it was routine based.
Right.
I was a very big routine based guy. I didn't have any like super crazy like goalie like cliche goalie routines, but I did have a few like. I was very routine based. Like I did put my left skate on before my right.
Dude,
I did dumb
I
shit
love
like
this
that.
guy.
talked
I'm the
about
same way.
Yeah.
I put my left shoe on every day
Yeah.
before my right.
I
mean,
have luckily-
that stems from hockey.
I have luckily left all of those like really anal kind of like
Nah, I
tendencies
haven't.
behind. I had go for music, but I did have all those. You know, I have very routine based.
Mine hasn't left.
Whether it was like pregame meals, whatever it was very routine based. But music was a huge factor into that. And then I remember, getting into dance music and be like, this is insane for like getting ready for hockey games.
yeah.
And then from there, my junior, I would say, is when I got into more. I didn't know. I found bass music, dubstep through me scouring the internet, like trying to. I was introduced
Find
to this
more
new world of
music
music, and I was like, okay, what else is out there?
Yeah.
I found UKF.
UKF.
And then that was my intro to like dubstep
Yep.
was the UKF.
I think that was everybody's intro to
Yeah.
dubstep.
I was just gonna say.
Yeah, so I was on those compilations like the 08, like 2009, 2010.
Caspa, Rusco,
Yeah.
Excision even.
Yeah.
Dr. P, all of
Dr.
those
P,
Flux,
Flux Pavilion. Yeah, I was just talking about him today.
Bar Nine, all of these compilations where I was like, oh my God, like what? This is incredible.
Yeah, what is happening?
Like this is truly like the most insane music for me to get ready and train to.
Yeah.
And so I just fell in love with it like right away. And so at that point in time, it was just purely, I was just a fan of it and I used it to kind of get myself ready for hockey.
Yeah.
And then my senior year, I left Utah and played for a hockey team in LA called the LA Selects.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And it was, had a lot of kids go from that program.
So were the goals around San Diego goals still around during that?
They
era
were,
of when-
I think
but
they
down
were. Yeah, I
south,
think
but-
they were a minor league team, and I think they even had like a AAA team. There was a few AAA teams back then. It was the LA Selects, the LA Junior Kings, the SoCal Titans.
Okay. Okay.
We had and actually, so I actually ended up a couple kids now playing in the NHL that I trained with. Thatcher Demko, who's a
cool.
goalie for the Canucks, and then
Oh,
Phoenix
cool.
Copley, who's the goalie for the Kings. I used to.
Nice.
We all had the same goalie coach.
Oh, awesome.
And I ended up playing against them, specifically more Phoenix Copley because he was my age. He played for a team called the SoCal Titans.
Okay.
And I played for the Selects.
The one that I kept forgetting.
Yeah, so I'd play against him a bunch. We trained together, and then Thatcher was a few years younger, but we had the same goalie coach that we'd train and we'd play. And then
Neat.
Eric Comrie, who's the goalie for, I think he plays for, who does he play for now? He plays, it wasn't the Jets. He used to play for the Jets. He's playing on a team right now. He was on the U14.
Wild?
I don't know. No.
We'll have to check
Maybe.
into that.
We'll fact check that.
Yeah.
But
We'll
he
have
was
that.
he was on the LA Selects when I played for the Selects, but he was on a team younger than me.
Cool.
And now he plays in the NHL. So there's actually from there is where I met a lot of kids that I ended up either playing against because we played in this league called the what was it called? It was like the U18, some league where we were in a league with
Western
all.
side type.
It was actually we got put into this league with all the teams from around the country. So we were in like different divisions with the teams like Bell Tire, Little Caesars. We had the teams from Texas, teams from all over. So we were in different divisions. So that's where
Like Shaddix maybe.
I played against them, and I trained up there a bunch in the summer for goalie camps.
So you had a good run, man.
Yeah, and then
I mean, for real. How tall are you?
I'm only
6'1"?
No, I'm only like 5'10". I'm not very tall.
Still
I like to
taller
say
than
I'm 6. I got 6'1" maybe the boots on. But
Well, and skates maybe, but
yeah.
So like what was that trend? So you're obviously very passionate about hockey and where you were going with it. So like what made you like what convinced you to shift so hard?
Well, and to be
away from it.
Well, it's passion because look at how successful he is.
Oh,
Well, I was a very
if you're
I was a
passionate
very
about
driven.
something,
I mean,
But what was that aha moment to where it was like, okay, I have another option of a career here?
well, that didn't come till way later. Like that came after my hockey career. Like as I got older, and I went and played junior hockey in Canada.
What part?
I played in BC.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
British,
And also on Vancouver Island. Played out there a little
So
bit
you
too.
were always Western and Eastern.
Yeah.
You were pretty far
I was
apart
pretty
on
much
that.
always Western, actually. Mostly always Western where I lived and played.
BC's beautiful, too.
It's beautiful.
Beautiful.
But as I got older, I got more into like the behind the scenes. Like as I got into junior hockey, my fandom of just being a fan of electronic music became more of like I went to my first music festival.
Dabbling a little.
Yeah, I went to my first music festival.
What was your first music festival?
It was Lollapalooza in
Hell
2000 and was it 12 or 11? I don't remember.
Anybody's set that just
yeah, I mean that's the reason I went with a bunch of hockey buddies that I played junior hockey with.
Cool.
And we're like, let's go to Lolla.
Yeah.
Let's do it. I'm ready. First music festival.
And you've played there.
Yeah,
we'll talk about that.
Full circle. And I went. The Perry's stage. It was a tent back then. It wasn't even a full stage.
Oh, yeah.
Dance music was still very much in its
we've been there.
blowing up moment for the U.S.
not
And
Go find the address under a garbage can off the side of the freeway.
I ended up seeing
phone a friend.
Yeah. I ended up seeing like Skrillex played like middle of the day in the tent. I saw like Afrojack, Girl Talk, all Pretty Lights, all these artists. And
Pretty Lights.
But that Skrillex set was such an eye-opening experience for me from a live perspective. I lost my friends the second I got into
coming from rock and that all just kind of correlates.
I mean, he was a huge influence on me with bass music when I first found out about him. And I went to saw his set. I like lost all my friends, went right to the rail, was by myself the entire first day of Lollapalooza. And it changed my life. It really did.
Absolutely.
The energy, it was the first time that I felt that type of energy that I used to feel playing hockey.
Well, and I mean,
felt
this is
from music. And I'm like, I want
look at Shaq
to make people feel this way. Yeah.
Shaq did the same thing.
Yeah.
Look at Paris Hilton. No, I'm just kidding.
No, we don't.
I'm just kidding.
No, yeah. And
Like,
so that was the moment where I was like,
context.
I want to understand how to
what I wanna do.
I want to make people feel this way.
Well, and I'm not trying to sound like a parent, but like proud of you for accomplishing what you have.
Yeah, thank you. It's been wild.
Since like that amount of time to do what you've done. Like that's incredible. Absolutely. That really is incredible.
It's been a wild journey for the full circle stuff has been kind of wild.
Well, and I mean, I definitely want to kind of hear how you even led into getting to where you're at.
Yeah, so that's when it kind of clicked for me. I was like, all right, I want to know more about this. I want to like go under the hood and I want to understand the production side of this. I have no musical. I had that at that point. I don't come from a family of music. I didn't do music growing up. Like band class in middle school was about as far as I took it. I was so hockey centric and hockey focused my entire life. That I didn't do other things because it was just hockey. It's a 24/7 sport, as you guys know.
Life other than
there was barely any social life. I mean, outside of just like being a kid and going to high school and all the fun stuff. But it was like all my entire social upbringing was revolved around my team, around my sports. And so, when I decided to quit hockey, I was 19. I was playing junior hockey in Canada. Had been traded a few times, and I was just getting extremely burnt out. At that point, it wasn't fun anymore. I wasn't having any fun. It was a business.
I was going to say,
which I think is a harsh reality for a lot of people.
And it starts getting political. And
it's very political. I mean, it's been political my whole life, so I was kind of used to that. But it was way more of a business. There was no guarantee of you playing or being on the team the next day. So I was like, that harsh reality sunk in.
You're starting to get to where you're like, I got to start to maybe adult and figure out life.
I kind of realized I was like at a point where I could take it further and it would get to a certain point, but it wasn't going to reach the level of where I wanted it to go.
Like big promises.
I'm sure that
the NHL dreams were definitely out the door at that point. And I was like, all right, let's be realistic. Like there's minor. And then I'm like, okay, cool. I can take this and see how far I can take it. But
well,
it's like
for the audience though, I'm going to say that like with the drive that you do have and what you've already accomplished, he could have made it.
I mean, yeah, the problem was I just wasn't having fun anymore. It wasn't fun to play hockey.
So you know what's crazy about that? So me and you are like exact opposites.
Yeah.
So I was a DJ growing up. My first show was in 2008. And I started producing music, and once I started producing, I went by Beat Sick. And then that was my Beat Sick, and I got signed to a record label, and it was like a small town record label, right?
Yeah, that's cool.
And I worked so hard at it. My dad, I can write shit out of music, but the mixing, the mastering, all of that, like, I'll show you some later, but like I got same thing. I got burnt out. I was treating it like a job. Like when EDC was happening, if I wasn't at EDC, I was in my studio the entire time the EDC was going, and I called it a produce-a-thon.
Yeah.
So I would just produce music the entire time the EDC was happening, and like I would try and make it, and I treated it, and same thing, like the fun.
If you're not
the
having
fun went
fun,
away,
what are you doing?
You know?
Yeah, it was.
And now I'm doing hockey, which is like the opposite.
Full circle. Yeah, totally opposite. So like,
and shout out to you.
Yeah, it was, and it was like the only thing I knew how to do well in my life. It was a really weird, harsh. It was like a real kind of coming to terms moment when I decided to quit and go back home. I was like, wow, like, what do I do now? Yeah. Like I loved, obviously, like I was still very, the next thought in my head was, okay, cool. I love training. I love strength and conditioning. All right, cool. I'll go to school for that because that's like the next best thing for me is being around sports and maybe around hockey. Maybe I can be a trainer at a high level in the NHL. Like that would be the next best thing for me. Yeah. And I'm like, cool. So I go home, go back to Texas. I spend some time off at home, and then I end up going on like I got to go to college now. And so I end up enrolling into Texas Tech University. And during this time, during the interim of me going home and then going to college, I go and buy some just random from Guitar Center. I go in like I go and pirate. Ableton at the time. Because I had no money. I didn't even know what I was like. I don't even know what I'm doing. And I'm like, so I go and I get a rip of Ableton. And I'm like, all right, cool. I have no idea what I'm doing. So I end up like, there's no YouTube videos at the time. Like YouTube tutorials are not really a thing yet. They are.
I had to be taught by somebody else.
Right.
Somebody that knew what they were talking about.
Or just experiment.
I ended up taking it to the extreme of like going on Craigslist and finding someone who could Skype teach me.
No way.
And I found a dude like in the UK that was like, yeah, I'll teach you. And
almost like LinkedIn now.
It was but for me, it was like I had no understanding of what music production was yet. So like for me to take it to like getting someone to teach me, I was like, I don't even understand like the basics. Like so I ended up like during this time working at a strength and conditioning gym. And I'd work the front desk and I would train and I would like learn and I'd train under different trainers. But in my time at the front desk, I would when I wasn't checking people in, I had like a little notebook. And the notebook in the front half of the notebook was like my workouts, my eating plans, everything that I would for myself, but also for, inevitably what I'd want to do growing up. And then the second half of the notebook, I would go on Google and I would search definitions of like what EQ meant and
compression settings. I did the same thing.
I didn't know what any of it meant, and so
write your goals down.
The second half of my
so funny. I did the
second half of my book was like just me writing down goals in music, different definitions of what different things meant, and then studying and learning, and then from there I was like, all right, cool, I got to go to college. Go to college for a semester, and within that first semester, I'm like trying to like make music in my free time, still not really understanding what I'm doing. I'm still following it extremely heavy. And then like in my free time, I was friends with a lot of the athletes at school. So I'd go to like parties and I would take my laptop and I'd bought a pair of like shitty speakers and I had Tractor on my computer.
Did you ever
Pro.
Do, Tractor.
I didn't even have a
Did you ever
controller.
do vinyl? Was it vinyl that you started
No.
with?
I was not. Yeah, I was well past that, unfortunately.
CDJ 800s were mine.
So I spun vinyl.
Oh, did you?
Yeah,
that's sick. Yeah. I mean, I have for fun now, but at the time, no, I had.
If you understand vinyl, it helps.
Makes so much.
I didn't even know how to DJ. I would just take my computer and I would just go to parties and I would just like.
It's kind of your foot.
I would just like fade in and out of tracks. I'm like, this is cool. I'm doing it. And then
it's that foot tap.
I remember. I remember studying for like midterms. My first semester was like Thanksgiving, and I'm like on my computer. I'm on Facebook at like a Starbucks, and I'm like, I'm seeing a kid that I graduated high school with out of LA, because I went to my senior year, I played hockey out there. So I graduated school in California, and I see this kid do a post about a music school he had just graduated from called Icon Collective. And I'm like, wait, what did he do? He went to a school. He went to a school for
almost a tech college, if you
will. It was
a
tech, exactly. It was like a trade school. And I'm like, what? And so I get in touch with him, like, what is this school, dude? And he's like, oh yeah, it's this. And he like gives me the admissions number, and I call. And that same day, I'm like at Starbucks. I call them, and I end up talking to this dude on the phone for 3 hours.
Oh wow! Sheesh.
And I just completely, I'm like, I want to do this. Like, this is what I want to do. Absolutely. Everything else went out the window, and I'm like, all right, cool. How am I going to tell my parents I want to drop out of college? And so I call my mom first.
Make a song and present it to them.
Yeah. Well, kind of close. So
what is this?
I realize I'm going to go home during Thanksgiving break and tell my parents I want to drop out of school and do this wild career choice that they have no idea that I'm into.
Parents weren't supportive of it back then.
And well, it
was hard to get it.
It was a different scene.
I'm very, very lucky. Well, I've always had very supportive parents because they let me leave home at like 14 for sports. They knew how driven. If I was driven to do something, I would make it happen. I'd do it. So they were very supportive of all my endeavors up into that point.
Shout out to the parents.
Shout out to the parents
for sure.
And so I go, okay, I'm going to do whatever college kid knows how to do, and I'm going to make a PowerPoint presentation.
There you go.
And I'm going to make handouts.
Genius.
And I'm going to make handouts. I'm going to hand.
You are a genius.
I was like, it was like Shark Tank before Shark Tank. Yeah. I was like investors.
Mom.
So I sit them down. I open my computer. I pass out handouts, and the entire presentation was about why I should go to this school. But it wasn't like I want to be a DJ. I want to be famous and make music. It was like, how can I sell my parents on this school based off of like realistic job opportunities.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, cool. So I'm going to be able to work in studios and be an engineer and work for artists and track them, X, Y, and Z. And it was this wildly like over the top presentation.
Just getting
and
do you still have that file? I would love to see it.
We gotta put that up on there.
If I can find the computer, I mean, if we could restore the computer it was on, it would be.
That would be
I still have the notebook somewhere in my parents' house with like the the hockey stuff and the music stuff. And then
awesome.
they were like, well, here's the deal. We're impressed that you went this far with this, and we can do one of two things. You can drop out of school, you can go back and you can unenroll, and you can move to California and do this, or you can finish the year out of school and see if you still want to do it after the year's done. And I'm like, if I wait any longer to do this, I could get a girlfriend. I can start loving school more, and maybe I'll never
your drive
do
is
this.
hot and ready.
So I'm
like you gotta.
I'm like, no, I'm doing this, and so I unenrolled from school. How
old were you, give or take? Sorry.
I was like 19 going to, I was turning 20 that year.
Just kind of rolling.
19 going on 20. Yeah. And, day after Christmas, packed up my Yukon, my old car, and I drove from Houston to LA. And
nice.
I was very, very lucky. My parents, so I went to the school called Icon Collective. At the time, it was only a 9-month program. And, my parents, basically, it was like, all right, cool. We get to save a lot of money on this kid's college. Yeah. So this is his college now.
Kind of a give and
lot
take.
cheaper.
And so they're like, cool, we'll support you. We'll give you an allowance to live for 9 months.
Cool.
And then you're going to have to do everything you can to make those 9 months count. Because when those 9 months are done, you're an adult. You're on your own.
Yeah.
Figure it out.
Now you got to figure out what you're doing after you get
So I took what would have been a 4-year figuring out process became a 9-month figuring out process.
Well, it worked out.
And
shout out mom and dad.
Shout out mom and dad.
And so it became those 9 months were like, I have to spend every day in class, in the studio. In my free time, I'd spend 16 hours a day in the studio trying to learn working. Because I went from I had no music background. So I had to learn.
And to have somebody maybe purchase or even acknowledge. I mean, that's a big gap to fill.
Well, spending that much time in a studio is rough because your ears get tired, dude. Your ears get tired. And
you're not even getting paid by the hour or anything. It's not like a labor-intensive job.
So
it's extensive, but you have to push marketing
I was lucky,
and everything with it.
Yeah, 100%. I was lucky that the kids I went to school with, we didn't know it at the time, but I ended up going with a lot of my contemporaries now. We all went together that are all now doing what I do, and other big DJs that are doing really cool things, and we ended up all going around the same time. We were just there because we loved music. We wanted to learn. We wanted to expand on our knowledge or start our knowledge. And
I love that too. Like you're feeding off each other. Still a team.
Yeah, it was still very much and I just used what I knew from hockey at this point in time. I used my work ethic, and I knew I had no musical background, but I knew I was going to work harder than everybody in the room.
I love it.
And I was going to make it. I was like, there was no like, oh, am I going to have to move back home? I'm like, no, I'm going to make this happen. This is going to work.
Yeah.
I am going to do this one way or another. And I just know that if I work harder, if I work as hard as I can, this will happen in some fashion.
Kayzo Hayden has leadership mentality, not boss status mentality. So
because of hockey, right?
Yeah, I mean seriously,
it stems.
If it wasn't for hockey, my work ethic in hockey, I mean everything that I learned from sports melted over and transitioned into music. But a lot of the negatives that I took from hockey, I left behind. Like I was way too in my head at times in hockey. Like as a goalie, I was the mental game, like physically fastest guy on the ice, one of the most athletic guys on the ice. But my biggest downfall with hockey was the mental game.
Well, and you've got a lot of burden when it takes 5 to get to the goalie.
Especially as a goalie.
It takes 5 people to get to the goalie.
I was very much like a house on glass stilts type of head case at times where like, I would spiral quickly, not like in a negative, like outlandish way, but like it would just like
frustration.
It would just be like there'd be games where if I let a goal in early, it was just I'd be pulled by
deflated or something. It kind of
so like that's life.
I
left that stuff behind with hockey, thankfully, and I took music a totally different direction. I was like, I'm going to just have fun with this. I'm going to completely just let things fall as they may. And so I'm going to take the work ethic. From hockey
when did something fall?
And
what year? Like at what point was it like, holy crap, like I made it in a sense,
well,
right?
there's still, I think up until this day, there's
networking and getting that out there. So was it like a SoundCloud, a Monster?
A little bit of everything. When I was in, like, back then, there was no, when I started so I went to school in 2012, and then back then there was no, like, Instagram wasn't a thing like what it is now.
Right.
There was no like TikTok or Snapchat. Like the social media aspect of music was not what it is now. And so a lot of the networking back then
was tough, dude.
Was just going to meet people, and I had a roommate that was already kind of doing it, and he knew people, so I'd just go out with him on Friday nights and go to this place called Avalon back in, it's still around, but they used to do this party called Control Fridays every Friday night in LA. And that's where I first saw like different DJs like Tommy Trash, Alvin Riss, Skrillex. I saw all these guys. Rusko was one of my first shows out there. And I'd go and I would just go watch, but then I would hopefully go meet people, other artists, agents, managers. And, but where it kind of first started was like when I was still in school, I ended up, my girlfriend at the time, I was probably at the very end of my school. I was about to graduate. It was like October, and I was graduating end of October. And I was like, she goes, you should enter this contest. Like, Insomniac's doing this thing called Discovery Project, and you should enter it.
I submitted for one of those. Yeah,
and I had never in my life had even submitted, done a mix. I've never entered a contest.
And you won it.
And I go, well, all right. I go, well, this is good practice. I'm probably not going to win, but this is good practice for me to like.
Yourself out there.
So, all right, cool. I'll make a mix, and then at the time, I was like, you need to make an original song. It was to play Escape from Wonderland, which was their Halloween, which is going on right now. It was like, you get to play the Discovery Project stage at this festival if you want.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So I got to make a spooky song themed around this festival, and then make a mix and send it in. All right, cool. So I do it, send it in. I don't think anything of it. I'm like, well, that was good practice. 2 weeks later, I get a call from them, and they're like, hey, like, congrats. You won. And I'm like, what? And it was like a few winners. It was like a few winners. It was like probably 3 or 4 winners at the time to play the Discovery Project.
Like tiers of.
Yeah, it was like we all get to play the art car. It was an art car pretty much. And they put the art
small
car.
little pop-up stage.
But they were like, but we're going to use your song as the recap song in the trailer of this festival.
Oh, no way.
And I'm like, what?
Whoa.
And yeah, so
how much am I getting paid?
So I had never DJ'd in my life up until that point. I'd never done anything live up until that point.
So you had to hurry and flip.
I was still learning. I was still in school.
Yeah.
And I was like, that moment was huge for me because I was just about to graduate, and I was at that turning point of like, okay, this is about to become a reality. Like, I'm not, there's the school, the parents' help is done. I'm going to have to go like get a job.
This is it now.
And then that moment was a huge turning point. I'm like, okay, I think I can really do this.
I might have seen like your submission.
I may have been
because I was following the Discovery Project.
I was like, this became more of a reality. Like, okay, like I'm getting my first show right as I'm graduating. Like, I can do this really. Like, it's not just like I think I can do this. It's like, this is like now more of a reality.
Now or never.
There's an actual path here. And so,
well, and for anybody that doesn't know, Insomniac is like the biggest of the biggest.
Yeah, they're huge.
To get an email or a call from them is life changing.
That's his company. Yeah.
Pascal and Pascal comes to Utah now. So he was at DOS Energy a couple months.
Well, that festival's blown up even.
DOS is great. I've played that a few times now, and it's awesome.
I've only seen you twice so far.
Oh, really? Yeah. Well, we'll change that tonight.
Third time's a charm.
Yeah, so that was my first moment. It wasn't huge. I was nervous. I had no DJ knowledge. I ended up not even DJing on CDJs. I used an APC 40 in Ableton because it's the only thing I knew how to use. And I played for like, I don't know, maybe 5-10 people that were just walking into the festival at the time. And I had the biggest, I started my career off with the biggest scary, like I started with the biggest blunder you could start off with. I ended up going up there and I'm not playing on CDJs. The guy before me is playing on CDJs with USBs. And I have to go plug in my gear.
There's a whole tear down.
I have to go plug in my gear. I'm freaking out.
Shit.
I had to open my laptop and I got to find a place to put my power cord in. And what I end up doing
is... And you've never played in front of a crowd
never
up
even
until that moment?
Played music before live for anyone.
Cow.
Hey, that's what I'm saying. Get out of your comfort zone. Try new things.
Get this. I go up and I go to plug in my APC 40 into the little like power strip underneath the decks, and I ended up turning off all the power to the stage by accident.
Oh no!
I hit the on-off button, and that ended up housing all the power for the CDJs and the sound. So I ended up turning this dude's set off before me.
Oh yeah. I had somebody eject my CD.
So I start my career off with the biggest nightmare situation. So I was like, well, it can't get worse than this, right? So I go up and play, and incredible. I played for like my girlfriend and like her 7 friends and maybe 2 other people that just happened to be walking.
Some
in.
of those smaller shows are some of the best.
I mean,
the most memorable. You know,
and then
Until you get to that.
That was my first moment of being like
coming off of Europe.
And then there's been many, like, to go back to your question, there's been many like I made it moments throughout my career. Lollapalooza 2018, playing Lolla for the first time. That was a huge I made it moment because that was the first music festival that got me into music.
Yeah. EDC.
EDC, my first time, Coachella.
Lost Lands.
Lost Lands is great. All of these major milestone moments.
So what was it like playing in front of a massive crowd? Was that like, oh my gosh.
I mean, the first few times I did it were very scary. Mm-hmm. But I think what I realize now
when you get in your moment,
what I realize now is like I've played in front of like 100,000 people, right? Yeah, but what I've realized is what's much more nerve-wracking than playing in front of that many people is playing in front of like 100 people. Because you can see everyone's face. Yep. You can clock into everyone in the club
over there
or the venue having
to see their
and
reactions.
you can see if they're having a good time. Yep. When you're playing for thousands and thousands and thousands of people, when you're up there, it's just a sea of people. Like you can't clock into more than like a few people's face at a time.
Everybody on the rails just doing this.
And then generally you can see the vibe because it's a sea of people, and it's way less nerve wracking, because you're a little bit more disconnected. Like,
and that's your element, though.
Yeah,
like, you love music, you're passionate about it.
Yeah.
Even if you were to mess up, and I'm not saying you do, but
I f***ed up many times.
I'm just saying
it's how you fix it. It's how you fix it.
Many times.
Nobody's even pucked up so many times.
I've pucked up. There we go.
Hey, we're getting bucked up.
We can edit that out. And we're also getting bucked up.
No, just teasing.
No, I've messed up many times.
And I'm sure that nobody would even notice when they're having fun.
What I've realized at the beginning of my career, I was so scared to mess up because it was like you're
train wreck.
I mean, I've had moments like where the CDJs will go into emergency loop when I first started. And in their nightmare situations, you're like, oh my God, this is the worst thing in the world. And then you realize it's just music, man. Like no one cares.
No. And even if they even notice, they're out there having more fun than anybody. And
there's always maybe a few people like, oh, that
the only people that notice are the wannabe DJs standing in the back like
I mean, there's always people that, there's always people that are going to critique every little thing you do, everything. I have always, since the start, made and played every genre of music. I make everything, and I've mixed metal and rock with bass music. I make hard dance. I make drum and bass. I make mid-tempo. I make everything, and let me tell you, like, playing everything is not for everyone. Like, I mean, there's been my entire career, I've had people that hate on me for playing hard dance at a dubstep set. And
I like how you've transitioned it. Like, and I feel like it was kind of
certain
from
breakdowns.
My perspective. Well, like you've kind of done the transition to where you've brought music full circle to. I've heard Linkin Park. I've heard, like rock, screamo, all of it to just transition into.
And I want to know what that transition was like. Because you started with like I don't know, future house, future bass type.
I mean, when I first started,
I went back and listened to all of your original, your first songs, your first tracks.
Good Lord.
So did I. He hit me up. He's like, we got to get caught up, and I'm like, dude, that's half my freaking Spotify, dude. Is all the older stuff.
So you had a track with Solven King.
That
was in like what 2014 maybe.
Yeah, Till We Die. That was a hard dance song.
One of my favorites.
Is that when something like clicked with you and like I want to do screamo?
Well, a lot of your collabs with Solven King are some of my favorite songs.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah, so he's actually a kid I went to Icon with.
Oh, cool.
Oh, really? Okay.
Him and like awesome. Jaws, Slander, Nightmare. We all went to school together.
Slander as well.
They'll be like playing later.
My wife is obsessed with Slander.
Yeah, so
I'm right there with
we started together. Me and Derek and Scott.
No way.
I showed them Icon. They went like 3 months after I went.
No way.
Yeah, like we all
that's cool.
met.
What a great school. Holy hell.
Yeah, I know.
Like,
I'm really giving them
shout out to Icon.
Shout out to all of them.
But yeah, that's how we all met each other. So we've known each other since like the beginning. And it's so cool that we all get to do this stuff together. But But for me, it was always like when I started making music, I loved everything. I didn't really like dislike any style of dance music. So I told myself, all right, well, I'm at school, and that's where it kind of started for me was I'm going to be a sponge for everything. I'm going to try progressive house. I'm going to try Moonbaton, trap, dubstep, whatever it is, hard dance. I'm going to try making everything, trance, whatever it is. I'm going to try it. And that really molded my versatility aspect of dance music when I started making and understanding music better. And so when I first started making music, up until about 2016, I was making strictly dance music, but it was all different styles of dance music, whether it was hard style mixed with bass and anything in between, future house, whatever, electro.
Yeah.
But then I got to a point in like 2016 where I was like, I'm not really like inspired to be making this as much as I was when I first started. So what do I do?
Well, you definitely have a sound now. It's
Yeah,
I think it's all about capturing your own sound.
Right.
You know
And
what I
so
mean?
for me, it was just going back to
elevating the game.
Yeah.
too, you know,
it was for me. I remember driving home one day. I was like, well, I need to get inspired. What do I do? So I go back to listening to what I grew up listening to. I started listening to old Under Oath, old Bring Me, and all these bands I used to like. I still love to this day. But I went through it. Atreyu.
God.
I went through this point of that time period. I stopped listening to a lot of rock music. I was like very just dance centric, EDM, bass, dubstep, and I'm like. So all my writing was influenced by it at that time. And I'm like, well, I need to be influenced. I need to go back to like what I grew up on and see if there's anything there. And I started to realize like a lot of the writing styles, the melodies, the harmonies, there was a huge correlation between like rock, alternative, pop punk, whatever you want, a different subgenre of rock music with dance music. I'm like, okay, cool. How can I bridge these two worlds together? And that was the time period where I started writing and testing out like guitars and songs, live drums and songs, different types of vocalists that were more on that side of the spectrum versus like dance vocals. And that was the hardest. I mean, if there's one, I respect to every rock engineer and rock producer out there, it is the hardest music to engineer, in my opinion. Like,
well, and that's one thing that I really respect about you the most as well. I mean, amongst many things, obviously, but the fact that you do have live drums, you have live guitarists, and you build a band around what you're doing as well.
Yeah.
And that makes it unique.
It's interesting that you went that route because so like my music,
that's changing the game.
My very first song,
elevating the game.
My very first song that got signed to a record label had Screamo in it.
Yeah.
And that was in 2012, 2011.
But I feel like
that was before Screamo was used.
It's kind of like what is going to become the next.
Yeah, well, I think for me it was
works.
like for me it was just it was I didn't really have to like it didn't feel like I was trying to do something to like get somewhere. I wasn't doing like I'm not going to make this genre because this was popular. I started doing that because it's what I loved as a kid, and I was able to.
It's not just a phase, Mom.
No, it's not just a phase. I was able to bring the roots of who I was growing up to what I love with dance music when I got older, and I was like, from that moment until now, it's been one of the greatest learning experiences, and I've been able to work with bands like Bad Omens. I've worked with Papa Roach. I've worked with Story of the Year. I've worked with so many incredible bands and different artists, and I've been able.
Ronnie?
I haven't. No,
Ronnie. We're gonna send this to him. Kayzo.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
That'd be fun. I could see some cool shit.
And so I've been trying to test the boundaries with what I can incorporate with rock and hardcore and metal and pop punk. It's all that's an umbrella for me with dance music, and that's what I love doing, and that's what this project has become. And then, obviously I do it with the live band now, which is a whole other side of things.
Are they here tonight?
They're not. Tonight's a DJ set. We just got done doing a 2-week run in Europe together. It was our first time bringing the band over to Europe.
Yeah.
And
cool.
That was
and you got engaged. Let's shout that out.
Yes,
you got engaged.
Absolutely. Shout out, wifey.
Yes.
Was she a high school sweetheart? How'd you meet her?
No. I met her through when I moved out to LA.
Okay.
So
and she's a rock. She's a rock star. She's a rock star, man.
She's a rock star herself.
Awesome.
Yeah, her music is incredible, and
she
does.
Really?
She does music too? She goes by Cray.
Oh, okay.
Oh, cool.
And she used to be a DJ, and make trap music and all that fun stuff. But she's gotten more into the alternative rock scene, and she sings and writes and produces. And so
kind of like Level Up is with. Isn't Level Up with?
Yeah, she's actually married to Subtronics. Yeah,
Subtronics.
And so she makes her own style of music, and I met her.
2 peas in a pod.
She DM'd me. I DM'd her on Twitter back in the day, and
hey, nothing
that's
wrong.
how we met
That's
each
how
other.
I met my
initially.
wife, dude. Nothing wrong with that.
We've been dating for a long time now, and it's like, now we're engaged.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, let's shout out everything. We've got a couple minutes left. Kayzo, dude.
Thank you for
He's
having
playing
me.
tonight at Geek Freaky again.
yes.
Shout out to V2
Hey,
Presents.
I got one request, by the way.
Okay.
I actually got 2.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
song
Real
request. What's your song request?
Mine is going to be "Where Are You."
Ready?
Where Are You?
Okay.
The remix from you.
Okay. I was gonna say I was thinking
song.
of like a rock song at first. I'm like, oh my, where are you? Okay.
Yeah.
I've got one for you.
I want you to write a song with Emerosa
Oh,
Utah.
wow.
Utah.
Deep cut.
Yeah.
Deep
And
cut.
we
The
also
name of the song is Utah.
we want you to create new Utah Hockey Club here, right?
Oh, yeah.
They
we didn't
need
even
they
talk
need a
about
goal
that.
they need a goal song, bro.
Well, let them know. I'll make
Make a goal song. I can
Let's go.
probably work it into the system.
We know a lot of people.
Tell them to hit me up. Utah Hockey Club. Hit me up.
I know you wanted to remix the Sports Center song.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I read that article as well.
That was so I don't think I've even done that yet.
We need you to do that.
Maybe bring that
we'll
back
talk
up.
about that.
But
here in
yeah,
a minute,
Utah Hockey Club. Hit me up. I'll
Okay,
make your
so,
goal song.
yeah.
Shout out Kayzo.
So my
Thank you.
my
You're
request,
amazing.
Yeah, what is it?
I'm a bit of an old school guy. You
Okay.
know, I grew up in the EDM scene from 2008 on, right? I love older. I love it when DJs drop older songs.
Yep.
You know, it's nostalgia.
All right, what you want?
Feel the power.
Okay.
Oh, that's a good ass.
Okay. Yeah.
That's
okay.
like one of my favorites of yours.
See, that was the first. That was the first song that I incorporated like guitars
Yeah,
in with.
dude.
So
I
that's a
love
good.
that
That's a
track.
deep cut as
That's
well.
a good track.
Heck
Thank
yeah.
you. All right,
Okay.
cool.
Well, hey, thank you.
Thank you for
Seriously.
having me.
Hayden,
This is awesome.
Kayzo,
You're awesome.
thanks, man. This has been epic.
Yeah, this is great, man. Thanks for
Yeah.
having me. Looking forward
Shout
to it
out
later.
Hockey Stops again.
Yep.
Bucked Up.
Yep. And we've got more big podcasts coming
Adam.
this whole weekend. So, yeah. And shout out to the Kayzo camp. Again, shout out to Jeremy Brandon, V2 Presents. This has been awesome.
Yeah.
This has been the Puck Drop Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you again.